Hello everyone, I'm your host Joel Bryce, and welcome back to another episode of Delta Waterfowl's The Voice of the Duck Hunter podcast. Today's guest is Trent Dirks from Retrieving Freedom Incorporated. Retrieving Freedom trains and places service dogs, primarily Labrador Retrievers, with veterans with disabilities and children with autism. Trent himself is a combat veteran and an avid duck hunter. We'll learn about Trent's military and professional history, as well as a unique partnership effort that a growing number of Delta Waterfowl chapters have struck with Retrieving Freedom. With that introduction, let's bring in today's guest. Welcome, Trent.
Hey, Joel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. Minus 26 degrees Fahrenheit on the way to work. How about you in Iowa?
Yeah, it was about, currently it's about negative 20 with the wind chill, so not much of a difference.
No, it's a good day to be inside, but at the same time, I was telling you before we started recording, when you get outside on a day like this, it brings character, builds character, so we could all use a little more.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. I really appreciate you taking the time, Trent. You have an interesting personal story and you have an interesting professional story. And Delta, we want people to I guess, meet you and be aware of what's going on at Retrieving Freedom Incorporated. So, we're going to get into that. We're going to learn a little bit about you, learn more about the organization and what you do. I'm excited about it. How about you?
I'm really excited. I've been waiting for this for a long time, so.
Oh, that's awesome. That is awesome. So, just a quick introduction. So, Trent, you are the Resource Development Director for Retrieving Freedom Incorporated. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. So, I'm going to put this on the front end and the back end. If you want to learn more about Retrieving Freedom, go to retrievingfreedom.org. Lots of great information on the website. Things that we're going to cover today are mostly on there, I've found. I'll give a quick mission statement read. This is verbatim. The mission of Retrieving Freedom Incorporated is to change lives through the training and placement of service dogs for veterans with disabilities and children with autism. That's a huge mission statement, and I think something that you can be proud of, I would guess.
Oh, absolutely. No, I mean, I get to wake up every day and know that I'm giving back to veterans and kids, and not only give back, I mean, it's affected my life so much that I have to. I have to be able to give that opportunity to somebody else.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to that discussion. I just want to hit the real high points of Retrieving Freedom, just so people on the front end understand what we're talking about. And again, like I said, I want to get people to know you, know your story, what brought you to Retrieving Freedom. Retrieving Freedom was founded by Scott Dewey and Charles Dwyer back in 2011. I understand that Scott was a dog trainer and reached kind of a point in his life where he kind of wanted to give back and hatched the idea with his co-founder Charles Dwyer to form this tax-exempt 501c3 Retrieving Freedom Incorporated. Is that kind of the quick history? You want to give a little more background on how they got started?
Yeah. So I know Scott better than I know Charles, but I know they both used to train some dogs and have some competitive dogs. Scott trained field trial dogs and won I believe it was the 2003 national with his dog Dewey's Drake of the Moon, yellow lab. Might be partial. But,
I'm partial. I have a yellow sleeping in my office right now.
So Scott had a brother that served quite a few years in the Navy and was kind of struggling with some issues and whatnot. And Scott was approached about training service dogs and thought, you know what, I've been training these field trial dogs. It's competition. Why don't I be able to give back to somebody else and help these veterans out? And him and Charles got together and founded Retrieving Freedom and thought they'd help other people. So that's kind of how the idea kicked off and how it all got started.
I always find it amazing. You look at, I was impressed at the size of Retrieving Freedom, the number of staff, 2 facilities, one in Iowa. I guess that's the original facility, with a new facility in Missouri. But if you look at the website, the number of trainers, the number of employees, the number of dogs that are currently undergoing training, it's I was shocked and impressed at the same time. So you're in Iowa, so you
Correct.
work out of the parent facility. How do those two facilities work together?
So our headquarters is now in Sedalia. We've got a very large building down there that was designed specifically for training and placing service dogs. It was modeled after our original facility in Waverly, but it's scaled up much larger and it sits on a lot, 22 and a half acres, I believe. So we have room to expand down there. But we work really well together. So a lot of our clients, I would say north of the Mason-Dixon or upper Midwest, they come through the Iowa facility. And then folks from, the Mid-South and southern states, they'll come to the Missouri facility. And then east, west, kind of depends geographically what fits better, or what works for their schedule as well. But our dogs go back and forth. Our trainers pop in and out of both facilities. Typically, our trainers are stationed at either Missouri or Iowa, but our dogs swap back and forth all the time.
Okay. No, and we'll get into that a little bit more. Let's quickly turn gears real fast because you have such a personal story. Retrieving freedom is more than a job for you. And I'd like for you to share that a little bit. But let's start all the way back. Where are you from, Trent? Where do you call home? What's your upbringing? Early hunting? Tell us about yourself.
So I grew up in Grundy Center, Iowa. Small town outside of Waterloo, Cedar Falls, about a half hour, 45 minutes. I now live on a farm that my folks bought in 94, 95, and got the opportunity to move in the house here about, 5 or 6 years ago. And so I currently reside outside of Eldora, Iowa. I grew up on this farm, hunting squirrels, rabbits, pheasants, deer, turkey, you name it. Never had the opportunity to hunt waterfowl when I was younger. I joined the Army at 17 years old. Went to basic training in between my junior and senior year of high school. And then I deployed shortly after. So I always knew growing up that I wanted to join the military. We've got a creek out back, and I always remember playing Army out in the pasture, out in the timbers. So it's something I always knew I wanted to do. A couple years later, in 2010, 2011, I deployed. So when people are typically in college, I was in Afghanistan. Since then, I've kind of been through the ringer a little bit, had my ups and downs, but yeah, I now I work for Retrieving Freedom. So
I guess is that, would you be comfortable kind of talking about, I think, and I do want to, for a purposeful reason, you retired from the military?
Yeah. So I spent a little over 9 years in the Iowa Army National Guard. I deployed to Afghanistan, like I said, 2010, 2011. My MOS was infantryman. So our company had our own little FOB or COP. Kind of depends on what you want to call it. We were pretty much a one unit station there, outpost out in the middle of nowhere, northeast Afghanistan, Cop Kalagoosh. We, took a lot of troops in contact outside the wire. We had a lot of mortars, cop attacks, stuff like that. IEDs were common. And I think it changed a lot of us. It did. And when I got back in 2011, I was diagnosed with PTSD. And like many veterans, I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of veterans that struggle with PTSD every day. And I pushed those feelings deep down inside and just tried to drive on and get through it, and kept it mostly to myself. 2015, I found out the hard way that was not the right way for me to deal with things. I was medically retired due to PTSD on October 5th. On October 31st, Halloween of 2015, I lost my second friend to suicide in a year and a half. And I was in a really bad place at that point in time. And I knew that I needed to do something different than what I was doing at that point in time. Otherwise, that's the path that I was going down. And I had heard about Retrieving Freedom up in Waverly through some clients of mine. I was horseshoeing at the time, and they were fostering a dog. And then I'd driven by the facility. I kind of knew they opened. I didn't know exactly what they did or how service dogs applied to someone like myself that struggles mentally and emotionally, but for the most part gets around physically pretty good. And November 1st, I thought, you know what? I've got some time. I've got to stop by and learn more. And so I stopped in, and at this point in time in my life, I could not go into public without having a panic attack. I was depressed. I was anxious. I wasn't sleeping very good. I walked into this building. I remember Scott sitting behind the desk, and I looked like a deer in the headlights when I walked in there. I couldn't make a sentence. My answers were very short: yes, no, nod my head, shake my head, shrug my shoulders. And I remember him asking, how can I help you? And I don't know. And former employee was a volunteer as well at the time, or gave me a tour of the facility. And I just remember going through this building wondering, I don't know how this applies to me, but I'm in the right place. And Scott was finishing up a phone call or an email or something like that, and then sat me down in his office and kind of explained to me what service dogs could do for somebody that's struggling in the ways that I was. Not only physical disabilities, picking objects up or bracing or turning on and off lights, that sort of thing, but things like blocking or positional commands where they'll sit in front of or behind you, grounding where they'll sit on your foot or put their head on your lap, or jump up and get your attention focused off of what's going on around you, as well as things like nightmare interruptions, and pretty much any tasks you can think of. So I wound up applying for a service dog, and I got placed with Tracer several months later. Things started going better for me until March of 2016. I lost another friend to a bad accident. He was a police officer that was killed by a drunk driver. And it kind of started spiraling me out of control again. I started self-medicating with alcohol. My work was struggling. I could not avoid having panic attacks, and I couldn't communicate with people. I was struggling so much. January of 2017, I became too disabled to work, both physically and mentally. May of 2017, I lost another friend to an accident. It was my squad leader. And by July of 2017, I was ready to give up. And I almost did. About 5 miles from the house here, I was driving down the road, the blacktop. And I remember just trying and really thinking about letting go of the wheel of my truck and seeing where it took me. And Tracer picked up on that. He jumped up on the center console of my truck. He started licking my face. He sat down, put his paw in my hand. And when I looked over at him, he just looked dead in my eyes. And when he looked in my eyes, he looked right into my soul. And he told me I needed to get help. And that day, I made a phone call to the VA Medical Center in St. Cloud, Minnesota. About 3 weeks later, I attended their treatment program for substance abuse and PTSD. I've been able to maintain my sobriety since August 5th of 2017. Tracer went through that program with me. He got me through the front door, which was one of the biggest steps. Um, and then, I mean, he was there every day, in my classes, waking me up from nightmares at night, everything. And since then, he's just been able to help me reintegrate into society, reintegrate into public, get more involved in my son's life, go to his school functions, take him grocery shopping. I mean, even simple things like going to the gas station or Walmart to get a couple of things, to things as big as taking my son to a professional hockey game. Most recently, we went on several trips, and then Tracer is just, I mean, he's helped me overcome so much. And then a year ago, I was offered a position with Retrieving Freedom as the resource development director. And I kind of got that through public speaking and these Delta events and other events. I've been able to get up in front of crowds of 500 to 500 people and share my experience of how Tracers helped me overcome all these obstacles and just become a more normal member of society again. And it's just been a tremendous impact on my life. So, I mean, he is one special dog.
I'm rarely lost on words, Trent, but I'm humbled by what you just said and then what you shared with everyone. That I can only imagine that takes a lot. I can't move on without saying thank you, for all that you've done for our country and the sacrifices that you've made, and to let us see a little bit of that journey that you were going through, and where you are now. It's amazing. And I feel like we could hang up this podcast right now and everyone would be inspired to learn more about Retrieving Freedom and what it can do. But I thank you for sharing that story. I really do, because I think the way that you've been helped, others are being helped, more can be helped, more needs to be done. And I imagine, I'm just guessing that, that vulnerability to tell your story, it has to be at least partially fueled by the desire to help others,
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
If I can prevent or help somebody that is going to go or is going through what I've been through so that they don't suffer as long as I did, and if I could help somebody, then I'm doing everything I need to do in this life.
Well, I think you have a life of service, and again, thanks again. I really, really do appreciate it, and I think I know everyone does. So,
absolutely, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna recollect here and decide where to go next. But I had this little thing here of, hey Trent, how has RTI changed your life? I'm skipping right over that one. We know exactly about that one. We've discussed your transition from outside of the position to inside. And I look at this and I say, oh my gosh, like, I think you kind of answered the question, Trent. Like, how lucky are you that you happen to live within a drive-by distance of Retrieving Freedom? Otherwise, if you'd never heard about it, didn't know about it,
wouldn't be here today.
You wouldn't be here today.
I would not be here today had I not stepped into that building in 2015 and gotten placed with a dog like Tracer. I would not be here today. There's no doubt in my mind.
Well, that's amazing. And that's amazing. And so obviously, as a veteran, you can speak from a veteran's experience. There's also children with autism that receive placement dogs as well. Can you speak to that just a little bit?
Yeah. So Scott and Charles started training these dogs for veterans. And they're two entirely different dogs doing similar tasks, right? So a veteran, you're really looking for a dog that kind of gets them off the couch, gets them out of the house, can go through a daily routine of going grocery shopping or going to school, going to class if they're in college or going to work, and really being able to do that all day long and create a sense of purpose and get them out of the house. Well, children with autism is a sensory disorder, and children with autism often get overstimulated, and they really need something that calms them down. So they wound up having these dogs that were pretty, more or less, pretty lazy and didn't want to do a whole lot. Could do the tasks, could do the work, but were just pretty content hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
And like, well, this dog isn't necessarily going to work excellent for a veteran. We need something that's going to really get them going. And they're like, what if we place this dog with a child with autism and it helps calm them down? So they kind of went down that hole and found out, wow, this makes a tremendous impact on these children and their families. And these children that are having meltdowns in public for 3 hours goes down to a couple minutes. They taught them to tether so that if a child has a tendency to bolt into danger or at Walmart and just run away, they could teach the dog to actually lay down when a child's tethered to the dog and takes off running. The dog will actually just lay down and act as an anchor. Help them get through school day without having major meltdowns and give them a positive thing, a positive reward by interacting with their dog when they complete an assignment or something like that. And it's just made a tremendous impact on those children and their families, able to do things that they weren't able to do. Mom's out grocery shopping while dad's taking care of the kids at home, or vice versa. Now they're actually able to go to a movies or go to the mall all together, and things that they haven't done in years.
Yeah, it's amazing to me. Like I know some people, they have a child who's diabetic, and so the dog can sense, when they're about to go into shock and able to avoid that situation. And it's just amazing to me that a dog can be trained for so many different purposes, other than simply hunting or sit, stay, come, fetch, right? So it's pretty amazing. And have you ever seen like, just staying on autism for a second, the TV show The Good Doctor? Have you ever seen that?
I have not.
Yeah, it's a man with autism who ends up being a surgeon. But it gave me just really quick. I was able to reflect on, noise sensitivity, overstimulation, and that, watching that character, he would spiral out of control in those moments. And so just kind of reflecting on my most stressful days, I know what it feels like to give my dog a hug and how calming that can be. I see it. And especially the tethering,
And multiply that by 1,000 when a child's, going into a meltdown or sensory overload, and the dog just senses that and comes over and just lays right on top of them like a weighted blanket and just.
Yeah, it's so I guess now these dogs are obviously, they go through a training regimen. I'd like to maybe learn about that a little bit after this next step here. But, I think that, from the outside looking in, I go, okay, a dog, the presence of a dog is so comforting to anyone. When a dog is trained to help someone with PTSD, it's trained to do very specific things. And you gave us a few of those examples. What are a fully functioning service dog for someone like yourself or in your situation? What are they trained to do?
So we tailor our dogs for specific individuals.
Oh.
So it's not like a cookie cutter, here's a dog, it's been trained to do this, this, and this, and this, right? Generally, some of the more common tasks are positional commands or blocking. And it's not like a defensive thing. It's to give a person a security bubble. So if somebody starts to come up and talk really close to somebody in front of them, you give the dog command front where a dog will sit right at your feet in front of you just to give you some space in between that person. Same thing if you're in a checkout line at Walmart. Rear is my command or behind, and the dog will actually sit behind me, leaning into the back of my legs so that I know he's there, but somebody's not coming up, pushing a cart in front of me or coming up from behind me, to make me feel, I mean, it will drive my anxiety through the roof, not being able to see what's behind me and somebody standing behind me. Now, placing Tracer behind me and feeling him there and knowing that somebody's not coming up behind me without me knowing, my anxiety's so much better. Then you get into things like, going and grabbing medications or reminding you to get medications, bracing, where a dog will lock its elbows and hips so you can put some weight on the dog to get you out of a seated position. Nightmare interruptions. Well, we can train a dog to pick up on what you do during a nightmare and then to either wake you up or to cuddle closer or whatever you choose. Turn on a light to wake you up so you can orient yourself to your room. Letting you know when you're anxious by kind of nudging you or saying, hey, you need to change your focus, to things like visiting. So if I was seated and I'm starting to get really anxious, my knees tapping or my feet are tapping, the dog will come up, put his head on my lap, and then I can pet his head. My anxiety goes down, dog lays back down, go about my day. Yeah, they could pretty much be trained to do any task to mitigate a disability.
And was Tracer probably would have done it anyway, but when you told that story about driving down the road and temptation to let go hit you, you credit, rightfully so, Tracer was saving your life in that moment and to get you to this point where we're having a conversation. Was that something that some dogs that they're encouraged to do that type of behavior?
Yes. So they're trained to react to your change in demeanor, right? So if I start crying or if I start getting really anxious and tapping my leg, well, dogs are also very, very, very intuitive and they will pick up on subtle changes. So a lot of it's training, some of it's just intuition saying something's not right. I need to check on my owner.
Yeah.
So a little bit of both.
Yeah, I would, again, I don't know this subject at all like you do, other than I've had dogs my whole life, and they do. Take a Labrador Retriever, right? As a puppy, you throw something, they have an instinct to go get it, and then come backwards with it. They don't have the instinct to give it to you, but you're basically teaching them through your training to give it to you. So you're taking their natural instinct and teaching them to bring it to you, right? And then over time, it becomes a fully functioning retriever. We're not teaching it to do something it doesn't know how to do, or it's not drawn to do, and comforting people. Like my dogs do it. If I'm sad or my wife's sad or my kids are sad, you're right. They have this, those social cues to, you're part of their pack. They care for you. And the training isn't teaching them to care for people. It's I guess it's accentuating or playing on that trigger, I guess.
Right. You're not training them to do something they don't want to do. You're just training them to respond to, what's wrong to help make it better.
Yeah. No, right? That's incredible. So okay. So the two training facilities, I guess one of the questions that I have, and it kind of became, you said that, so let's say for a veteran service dog, you, just for lack of better terms, you build the dog for that person's needs. So how long are dogs in training? When does it start? How long are they in training, and how long until their forever owner receives that dog?
So training starts pretty much right away. 8 weeks old, they enter our foster program where a foster home or a foster family will raise that dog till it's about, 9, 10 months old. They will work on basic obedience with that dog, socializing it, taking it into public as much as possible, exposing it to different environments. And it gets evaluated by our staff at least twice a month. At 10 months old, give or take, they'll come back to our facility and start entering some of our impact programs. We work with 3 different universities. We work with 2 different prison facilities. We work with, well, I don't even know how many teachers in elementary schools anymore, where dogs will go to a classroom with a teacher to get exposed to that environment. Um, and then uh, we also have an intern that goes down to Camp Southern Ground in Peachtree, Georgia, and will attend summer camp with a dog on campus to help those students as well. So uh, that's for about till about 17, 18 months. Then they'll enter our stage 3 program and they'll start working with our individuals that are going to be placed. And then that's when they get tailored to a specific individual on different tasks. And we know by that time whether they're going to be a dog for a child with autism or a dog for a veteran.
Okay.
And then we can kind of tailor it from there based on, does the individual have physical or mobility issues, or is it more of a PTSD service dog? Does the child bolt? Does it need to learn crash? Does it need to open doors? Does it need to turn on lights? And that's when we can spend about 6 to 8 months working on those tasks for that individual.
Is that individual involved in that part of the process?
Yeah. So they'll be involved in the process. Typically, we don't introduce any of those dogs until that 16 to 18 months to any of our clients or potential clients. But after that, we'll get pre-matches where this dog might kind of work for you, and we'll have 3, 4, 5 dogs that say, hey, this one might be a good fit. Let's keep working this. Let's introduce you guys. Let's go to Walmart. Let's kind of figure out what kind of relationship is there.
Okay.
And if that's going to work out.
Okay. So it's not at first I was envisioning an 18-month wait before someone in need, first meets their dog, but it sounds like it's maybe a 4 to 6 month process before they're placed full time with their owner?
From application acceptance to placement, I think our average is about 13 months right now.
Okay.
But during that 13 months, you're coming out, scheduling some time to work with some different dogs and work not only with some dogs, but learning how to handle a dog.
Okay.
Learning some of the training techniques, learning how to utilize the dog in public, and then trying to find that match. So
okay,
not necessarily sitting there in limbo for 13 months.
Okay. that makes a lot of sense. And so how many dogs are so there's a pool of dogs in, that stage 1 and 2 training that you're talking about before, the individual comes into perspective, and that specialized, I guess, personalized training. How many dogs are in that, those first stages of training right now?
Overall, I believe, and it changes every day, but I believe we have 85-ish currently, all the way from 8 weeks to 2 years old.
Okay.
So we probably have close to 60, 65 in that stage 1 or 2. And then our stage 3 is a little bit lower because it's such a shorter amount of time. But
Right. And so looking on the website, I think I saw actually the Retrieving Freedom logo. To me, that's a Labrador. But I see one golden retriever on the website. I think every other dog that I could see was a lab. A lab. Is there any? Are they all labs? Primarily labs?
We use labs. golden retrievers, and some doodle crosses. And those are the 3 breeds that we use.
Okay. And is it primarily labs?
I would say a majority of them are
Okay.
labs.
Okay.
Uh,
So I have to ask the question: Are are these hunting dogs too?
we don't train them for hunting, but if a client decides that they want to train and pursue that, they are very welcome to.
That's compatible. Okay.
Yes, I took advantage of that when I got Tracer. So Scott asked me one day if I was interested in hunting, and at that point in time, I really wasn't. I was kind of over it. Grew up hunting, as I said earlier, but I kind of lost the desire. And he asked, "Well, what if your dog hunted?" And I was like, "Maybe,
Mm-hmm.
I'd give it a try." And so he kind of started walking me through the process of just the basics of, hold and force fetch and yard work and stuff like that. And I kind of took with it and started running and wound up working for his old assistant for several years. And I actually trained Tracer to retrieve, and he's been my little hunting buddy ever since. So
you were out here in Bismarck not that long ago on a hunt, right? On a hunt, right?
Yeah. So I hunted the early goose season with Dr. Chris Nicolai and Mr. Scott Petrie and Jake. We all went out hunting for early goose. And then I spent 4 days out there, I think, freelancing with actually with Scott, his boy and one of his boys' buddies. So
yeah, I'm 99% sure that I was gone during that time period, but I heard all about it. And
oh yeah, Scott Turning came up and hunted with us one day.
Okay, that's
good.
Up
there, so
yeah, that's good. Well, people are possibly wondering, why is the Delta Waterfowl bringing on? Not that it's not a good cause, but maybe someone is wondering what's the intersect between retrieving freedom and Delta Waterfowl, and so let's get into that. And there's we have a membership, we have a chapter system, and our chapters, Delta Waterfowl chapters, they're scattered all across the United States and Canada. They hold fundraisers, yes, but what's cool about Delta chapters is that we don't want them just blindly supporting an organization and hoping we do good things with it. We want our chapters and volunteers and members to be ambassadors. We want them to be able to participate in conservation and hunting advocacy themselves. And an expression of that, we developed this thing called Waterfowl Heritage Fund. And so each chapter gets to spend 15% of the money they raise every year for local projects. It might be first hunt, hunter recruitment work. It might be nest structures or scholarships. And it might be something like this. This one's a little bit different. It's not WHF, but can you describe how Delta Waterfowl became a supporter of retrieving freedom, a partner, and what we're doing together?
Yeah, so I found out about Delta Waterfowl at my very first hunt test with Tracer. I had met a committee chairman, and we were at the hunt test, went our separate ways, and I heard from him about 6 months later, and I forgot entirely who he was, but invited me to an event. And I talked to Nick Hampton, the regional director for Iowa. He called me up and was like, "Hey, you got something we can auction off and help you guys out for the weekend?" And so I went to the event. I had a great time. Got to know Nick, met up with this chapter chairman, Jesse Furman. I was like, "Ha, I know you." And so we got to talking, and I got involved in Delta Waterfowl, and I started getting involved in, the veterans hunt and in the committee and stuff like that. And a couple years later, I was like, how can we tie these two organizations together, raise awareness for veterans that might want to get out into hunting sports or shooting sports, waterfowling, and not only that, but maybe somebody in the Delta community could use Retrieving Freedom's help. And we started this fundraiser where we would auction a duck call off at events across Iowa and Nebraska. And for a chance at a hunt and a big prize package. And so I started going to these Delta Waterfowl events. I would share my experience about Tracer and about retrieving freedom, and we'd auction a call off and split the proceeds. And uh, more people knew about retrieving freedom and our relationship with Delta Waterfowl, and hopefully are helping people out. Well, it started growing and growing and growing. The first couple of years we auctioned off 30 calls a piece, and it was mainly Iowa, Nebraska the first year. Some guys from Memphis had heard about it. And then now it's just kind of grown to, I've been up in Bismarck at the Bismarck event in August, all the way down to Monroe, Louisiana, and as far east as Virginia Beach. So it's just continued to grow, where these chapters have want me to come share with their community about retrieving freedom and the good things that we're doing for veterans. And it also encourages the chapter to maybe have a veterans hunt or get veterans involved in shooting sports and wing shooting. It's just been tremendous.
I would imagine, having been at those banquets, I don't know what that duck call is worth. Let's just say it's $100 bill. But I mean, there's no way they're selling for $100. So you must be seeing some pretty amazing price tags going on those. And what that is it's yeah, sure, they got a duck call, but I bet you in many cases they gave that duck call back. But the price tag for that duck call is amazing, I would imagine, at the end of the night.
Yeah, it's been incredible. The response that we've gotten from people, the support that we've gotten for the organization, um, it's just incredible what happens at these events and the people that I get to meet, and the things that we get to do.
So then I guess bringing into this, so through this partnership, a dog has been sponsored. Is that right?
Yes, correct.
And cleverly, the dog is named Delta. So tell us what you know about Delta then, like the Delta the dog. I think you said you fostered Delta.
I fostered him for about 9 or 10 months. I took him to, gosh, I don't even know how many events with me. So he got the experience of going to a lot of Delta Waterfowl banquets and traveling part of the country. And he's always been a really good dog. He's just a sweetheart. And loved playing with my boy. He loves toys. Just pretty regular dog. He's entered the program. He went through last fall, I believe. He was with an ROTC student at the University of Missouri and went on campus and everywhere with that student. He's now back at our facility in Missouri, continuing his training, and he should be meeting clients here pretty soon to potentially get placed with a child with autism if everything works out well.
So Delta's a chill Labrador then.
He likes hanging out.
Yeah. You gave that kind of the fork in the road is where will this dog go? And so he likes hanging out. He's a calming force.
Absolutely.
So for anyone that might be interested in supporting Retrieving Freedom, sponsoring a dog, I don't even know where to begin. I understand what a dog is worth, and that can be a wide price range. But what's the financial cost to support a dog, or is there one that you can describe?
So it costs about $50,000 from start to finish to place a dog with a veteran or a child with autism. And that's a cost that we do not pass on to our clients. So that it's a free service for our clients. And not only that, but both of our facilities are equipped with bedrooms and suites, kitchens, so that when a client does come from wherever they come from, they have a place to stay. They don't have to get a hotel room. They don't have to worry about going out to eat all the time. They can stay right there, work with their dog, get placed, go home, and we try to make it as cost efficient as possible. Most of these people are living on limited incomes, fixed incomes. They can't afford, to incur the cost of a dog, let alone, $50,000 worth of a service dog. But so that's about the average cost Um, our sponsorship tiers are, sponsoring a puppy starts out at $2,500, and that's uh, to be able to purchase or breed a puppy. We have litter sponsors at 5,000. We have kennel sponsorships, final training sponsors, and everything you can think of. So,
Okay. So primarily from private donations?
yeah, private donations, grants, grassroots fundraising.
Yeah, that's amazing. Working for a nonprofit myself, I definitely understand, you kind of you eat what you kill, and the I don't know. This is pretty amazing, and I think that was a very creative idea that you had there, and born of, I guess, your passion for the out of doors. For your own dog Tracer, and I don't know. I'm pretty thankful that you took the time to share your story, and I hope this motivates someone, a listener, to open up and give more. Go to a Delta banquet looking for, hoping to see that there's that duck call. And if there's not, ask for it for the next banquet. I really appreciate it. Anything that you feel like we've kind of missed here, Trent? Anything that you want to tell? We have time.
Um, I don't know. There's so much that goes into, the training of a dog that it's hard to cover in an hour and everything that I've been through. So, but if you have any questions, feel free to ask away. I'm more than happy to answer them.
Okay. Well, the only one that comes to mind, and it's just kind of one of those should I or shouldn't I ask. What's the for you or for others who have a dog for whatever reason, whether it's an autistic child or adult, dogs have a lifespan. What's the transition planning for someone who has a dog like that?
So we have follow-ups with our clients. The first year, I believe we have a 90-day, a 6-month, and a year follow-up, and then it's yearly after that. If there's anything in between that, give us a ring. Hey, how can we help you? All right, let's do some retraining or whatever. At those yearly follow-ups, we're going to ask the individual, especially as it gets later on, excuse me, in that dog's life, are you wanting a successor dog? So we have standards for our children. We serve children with autism, and I believe the age range is 6 or 7 to 13, and that's kind of where the dog's going to make the most impact on a child. So some of our children with autism aren't going to get a successor dog from us, but we're going to point them into a direction of where an organization that will help them out. Our veteran clients are eligible for successor dogs, and we're going to try and put them to the front of the line so that when they come in for that evaluation and they're asked that question, are you looking for a successor dog? We can be on the hunt and we can start training to have a dog ready for that dog's retirement. So Tracer will be in service for 10-ish years, so he'll be 11, 12 years old, hopefully, by the time he retires. And then he's still mine. I don't turn him back in. He's still with me. But then if I would need a dog to assist me going out into public, I would get placed with a successor dog at that point in time.
Okay, that's I really like that strategy in the sense that it's kind of like a hunting dog. It's not uncommon for a dog towards the end to not be able to give you what you need and
demanding. Going into public, traveling, getting in and out of cars, being able to hold your bladder and hold your bowels and stuff like that. They have to continue performing tasks to mitigate that disability to be allowed public access.
Okay. Well, you have to take care of it. The relationship goes both ways. You're taking care of them, they're taking care of you, but that's amazing. So are you planning for a successor?
I'm undecided at this point in time.
Okay.
I feel like I've been doing a lot better going into public. I've accomplished a couple of goals, or maybe not necessarily goals, but almost benchmarks. I attended an SEC football game at Ole Miss, and I attended the game without Tracer. So that was my highlight of last year, or my, maybe my own touchdown.
Yeah.
Is one of the volunteers from the Memphis chapter that I met invited me to go to an SEC football game, and I went, and I didn't take Tracer in there because it was a little chilly, and I made it through the entire game without having a panic attack or anything, and I felt really accomplished after that.
Hey, I tell you what, that's chaos right there. And so do you find yourself, I guess, as you're exploring that decision of whether or not you want a successor, an additional dog, are you testing yourself to help make that decision?
Yeah, I definitely am kind of testing what I'm comfortable with and doing and not doing with or without tracers. So, I mean, if I had, I don't know, it's a tough call, but I feel that at Tracer's retirement, that I'd probably be all right without a service dog, as long as I have, my travel companion and hunting dog to, come home to at the end of the day, or travel with me and whatnot. But I don't know if I'm going to need the assistance to actually go out into public again, but we'll see when that time comes.
Well, hey, Tracers, for those, Trent and I are on Zoom, and so I can see into. Am I looking at your living room? It looks like it's your living room.
Yeah, it's my four-season sunroom. Yep.
There you go. I see a nice Drake pintail there.
Oh yeah.
Shadow box full of duck calls, and every once in a while, Tracer sticks his head out there, and
come here.
There he comes. There he comes. Oh, yep. Trent and I are partial to yellows. I'm not going to be shy about it. My yellow lab Chester is here in the. Oh, there he is. For those that I guess you can't see this right now. Trent's getting a face bath here from Tracer, and no, that's amazing. Trent, you have an awesome story. You have a great cause, and I want to tell you that you've made an impact on at least one person, and that's me. And I promise you've made impact on thousands of people and more to come. And thank you for sharing your time. I guess the vulnerability,
Absolutely.
the vulnerability that you subjected yourself to early in this conversation. I really appreciate it. You drew me in close, everyone in close. And I guess to wrap up, you can jump on Retrieving Freedom's website. You can see who their staff members are. There's contact information for the organization if you want to support, learn more. Hey, or if you're a veteran or have a child with autism, I would encourage everybody to reach out and explore this opportunity for yourself or for your child. If anyone has questions, this podcast has a simple, dedicated email address, podcast@deltawaterfowl.org. If you can remember that, you want to send in a question for Trent, I'll forward it to him. If you have comments, questions, anything you'd like this podcast to explore, feedback, send it to that as well. I guess with parting comments, Trent, I'd like for our paths to cross again. If you end up out here in North Dakota, or if I end up in Iowa, or some point in between, let's get out.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll be there in August, so.
Do it again. Okay. Well, then I'm going to make a commitment to be there and shake your hand in person, and maybe we can find some of those early Canada geese and swap mosquitoes and tell some stories.
Well, last year we were in Crocs and shorts, so.
It's we're not going to do that today. It's probably warmed up a little bit, but in August, it's usually pretty warm by that time still. So again, Trent, I appreciate it. Thanks for your time, and we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you, Joel. Have a great one.
You too. Thanks.